Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Daily Fantasy Whiff. I am Big Italy 42, joined by my comrade Josh Shepardson at BChad50, and we're talking about tonight's slate starting at 7:05, and we're going to be breaking down each of the games, some situations to avoid, some situations to target, some stacks, and an 8-game slate, but not a lot of great pitching options, so certainly some matchups to exploit. One in particular, or two in particular, that I am a huge fan of, and I think Josh is on board with me there, so... without further ado, we're going to be talking both FanDuel and DraftKings here. We'll try to give you some guys who are underpriced, overpriced, things like that. FanDuel definitely tonight, really, really loose pricing. I mean, it's really cheap. I'm sure you'll see. If you checked out our FanDuel podcast from earlier, then you'll know that as well. But tons of value to be had tonight on FanDuel.
Yep, definitely.
All right, starting off here, we're going to be going game by game, and we're going to give you the odds. We're going to give you the pitchers, and obviously we don't have lineups yet. It's early afternoon now, but we will definitely have some numbers for you. A couple weather concerns. Looks like Baltimore, San Diego, and Colorado, all with some rain concerns. So monitor that before you lock these guys in your lineups. Josh and I, unfortunately, are not meteorologists, not yet at least, but looks a little bit concerning in a couple spots, especially Baltimore. But like I said, check that out before you lock in your lineups. We're going to proceed as if there is no concern. So with that being said, first game tonight is Boston at Baltimore, 8.5 run total. Essentially a pick'em, very slight favorite for Wei Yin Chen. Most of that due to, I guess, being at home. I mean,
Seems like a reasonable guess to me.
Yeah, I mean, you got two good offenses against two pretty average pitchers. I mean, Masterson, an above-average ground ball pitcher, but not really above average in any other way. Walks too many batters, so certainly a lot of hitters that you can exploit here in this one. And I'm a big fan of the Boston bats here. I won't be touching either pitcher outside of maybe Masterson in a tournament. Masterson at $6,800 on FanDuel. Not a bad price there at all. His DraftKings price is, I lost it, $6,300. So he's nice and cheap if you want to target those Baltimore bats, but that's a very risky proposition. I mean, one of the hottest offenses in baseball right now.
Yeah, and I like the Boston bats. We talked about Dustin Pedroia earlier. He's probably my favorite play in this game. Maybe get a mini stack. Since you won't be able to hook Ortiz and Napoli, you can get a 1-3 though. Nab yourself some Mookie Betts, nab yourself some Dustin Pedroia, nab yourself some Ortiz, who's actually better against righties and lefties, but should drive his ownership rate down as a result. So that's always helpful in the GPPs. But I'm with you. Maybe use some Masterson in some tournaments. The strikeout upside is so low though, and if he isn't keeping the ball on the ground, Camden Yards is not the right place to be serving up fly balls. So actually like some Orioles bats as well. We discussed Alejandro De Aza as a like earlier. Still on him. Of course, the important thing with Baltimore is keeping an eye on the lineup because Buck Showalter, one of my favorite managers from a daily fantasy perspective, he is not afraid to exploit matchups. He will juggle his lineup on a daily basis, and he will get guys into favorable situations to take advantage of the matchups. Basically, we were talking before the podcast about Brad Ausmus being an idiot, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Buck Showalter is the exact opposite of Brad Ausmus. The guy knows how to construct a lineup to take advantage of platoon numbers. So see what they're rolling out because there's going to be some value on that Baltimore team, but a lot of it's going to be dependent on who's hitting where. So like Chris Davis, like basically any left-handed bats against Masterson in that lineup. So assuming Travis Snyder's back in the lineup, like Snyder a little bit, like Alejandro De Aza, not probably going to be juggled enough that it's going to be tough to get a stack of Orioles, but I'll take the left-handed bats at least against Masterson.
Yeah, and of course we're going to mention, as you already know, Jimmy Paredes, still just $2,000 on DraftKings, 26 on FanDuel. So if you're a fan of great values and great hitting positions where he should be hitting right around second, then you should be. Then go ahead and get yourself some, especially on DraftKings. I mean, he's once again a borderline must-play on there just because of his price tag. I mean, even if he's not hitting second, $2,000 gives you so much roster flexibility. If you want to get some Mike Trouts, some other big hitters that are in good spots that we'll get to later, I mean, it's just it's too hard to pass up that kind of value there.
Yeah, and daily reminder, Hanley Ramirez still shortstop eligible at DraftKings, keep that in mind when you're constructing your lineups later, because everybody and their brother is going to be on Troy Tulowitzki. Hanley's going to give you that nice, very high ceiling swerve play, basically. And it's crazy to say that Hanley is a swerve play, but when Tulo's ownership is through the roof at home, I mean, yes, the price tag's fairly high there, but I'm going to get some Hanley tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And an interesting thing, like you mentioned with the Boston stack, could be, obviously, you can't fit Ortiz and Napoli, both first base eligible. Interesting way to go is maybe get yourself 2 entries in that same tournament and flop them. Put Napoli in one, Ortiz in the other. Not a whole lot of price difference there, so you may be able to squeeze them in with the lineup you already have, depending on how it's constructed. But if not, maybe just switch around one player. That way you get yourself some exposure either way. And because the worst thing is when you have these stacks and you miss out on the one home run or the additional home run. I mean, I think that's a good way to go tonight.
I agree.
All right, moving on to the next game. It is Atlanta at Philadelphia, and not a ton to like in this one as far as pitching goes. Yes, Shelby Miller's been pitching better. David Buchanan, he's not a horrible pitcher. He's about an average pitcher, I guess a little bit below average, but only a 7.5 run total. Shelby Miller, a minus 120 favorite in this one, and David Buchanan, pretty terrible against righties last year. 357 WOBA allowed, so certainly some merit to stacking this game, but at the same time, I mean, you're pretty much going contrarian to stack this game.
Yeah, and I mean, I just such a bad lineup in Atlanta. It's tough to click add to get any of these guys on your roster outside of Freddie Freeman, who we discussed on the earlier pod. Like Freddie Freeman tonight. I will get back to Shelby Miller though. I'd like him on DraftKings as an SP2. He's a batting favorite. He's only $7,300. And interesting thing to note, I have his Brooks player card up right now. He has actually started throwing more sinkers and cutters this year. So we are looking at a different pitcher. Not throwing the four-seamer as much. And he's facing, as Justin likes to point out, I referred to the Phillies as a slight step above a AAA lineup. And I stand by those remarks. And so definitely think that there's some merit to using Shelby Miller as an SP2 on DK. Don't like the price point on FanDuel, but as we talked about on the FanDuel Punch-Out, his price point's going to make him a bit of a contrarian pick if you are looking for that GPP separator of sorts. Get some roster disparity there by getting some Shelby Miller. Yeah,
and also like we mentioned, hitter's really cheap on FanDuel tonight. So yes, he's priced higher than we'd like him to be, but still not prohibitive. I mean, you can still get anyone you like in your lineup. But I think the consensus here is get yourself a couple choice batters, not very many, just two bad offenses. Doesn't really matter who they're facing. It is contrarian, but at the same time, there's not a ton of upside with this one. So.
No.
All right, moving on to the next game, which I do love stacking this game on one side in particular. St. Louis at Milwaukee. Adam Wainwright, or whatever's left of him at this point, a minus 148 favorite, 7.5 run total. He's still a fine pitcher, but he's not the dominant force that he once was. So that's not to say I'm going to be targeting many Milwaukee bats, because I won't. He's still a very effective pitcher. But what I will be doing is, if you're looking at lineups tonight and you see an L next to any St. Louis Cardinals bat, put him in your lineup, because Wiley Peralta, I always want to say Wiley, 361 WOBA allowed to lefties last year. Some really good left-handed bats on this St. Louis team. You got guys like Jason Hayward, who's going to be in a great spot. Matt Adams, who I don't love playing Matt Adams, but he's in a good spot as well. He hits righties well. Obviously, great spot against Peralta. Really cheap way to go if you want to get yourself some extra exposure, some power in the middle infield. Colton Wong, he's got a nice price tag at $2,800 on FanDuel. Don't mind him, but my favorite, and I think your favorite from this game as well, is Matt Carpenter.
Yeah, I mean, he starts this lefty barrage for the Cardinals, and as you know, Peralta struggles mightily with lefties. 3 of the first 4 hitters in the Cardinals lineup are left-handed. Get the guy that kicks things off in Carpenter. I mean, he hammers right-handed pitching, and I love all these lefties at Miller Park as well, because the park factors are just fantastic. Great home run park factor. Jason Hayward certainly took advantage of it last night. Make sure that you're getting some left-handed Cardinals bats in there. Get at least one righty in there on FanDuel. $2,500 Johnny Peralta. Jhonny, Johnny. It kills me every time, but Jahani is a great choice at shortstop if you want some power potential behind all those lefties. Gonna have some ducks on the pond tonight. Gonna offer you some salary relief. On DK, he's a little bit more expensive, but still usable. $4,100 isn't the worst price point for him there. Definitely like him better on FanDuel, but definitely get your Cardinals left-handed batters in there, and that one right-handed batter who spells his name funny.
Yeah. One of my favorite stacks today, and like you mentioned, Peralta's price on FanDuel is just too good. I mean, if you're not playing Tulowitzki tonight, you got to get Johnny Peralta in that lineup at 2,500. I mean, even if you're just stacking another team on FanDuel, go ahead and put Peralta in as your shortstop. He's a cheap source of power, like you mentioned. Should be a ton of guys on base for him. Plenty of RBI opportunities, bats fifth. I mean, everything going in his favor except for the platoon advantage there. So, all right, next up we have San Francisco at Colorado. Yes, you heard at Colorado, so I'm sure that gets you excited about Coors Field. But, yes, it is a 10-run total again. Jorge De La Rosa, minus 129 favorite, so a decent favorite. Tim Hudson on the other side, and neither of these teams hitting the ball particularly well. I mean, got some guys for Colorado, Tulowitzki and Carlos Gonzalez in particular, really struggling, but Gonzalez kind of got it going a little bit yesterday. He's got a ridiculously good price tag again on FanDuel at just $3,100. His price keeps dropping. Yes, it's a ground ball pitcher, but it is at home. This is still a stackable game, not one that I think is a necessity despite the high total, because two decent pitchers, and I mean, De La Rosa did get shelled in his last start, but somehow he's been much better at home than on the road. He's been pretty good in Coors Field. He's a ground ball pitcher. He's got a 51.6% ground ball rate from last year, but really struggled with right-handed bats, 336 woba allowed. So Buster Posey, I don't know if you heard of the guy. He's won MVP before. He's a pretty good hitter. He's your top catcher option by far tonight.
Yeah, he's not bad against lefties either. Whenever I hear at Coors, I immediately picture Mr. Burns just rubbing his hands together, doing that little thing. It's like, ooh, Coors Field.
Yep.
But Posey's the name really to get tons of shares of here. It's not a secret. He hits left-handed pitching really well. He escapes AT&T Park's grasp tonight and gets to hit at Coors Field, which is like, it's basically like going from central New York or Ohio, like where we both live, to a tropical paradise, like taking that trip to Cancun, or maybe a trip to Vegas if you're a gambler. I mean, like, this is a getaway for Posey. Posey's like probably that happy bachelor just getting to go out and do whatever he wants to at Coors Field. It's got to be like reason for celebration and elation for him.
Oh yeah, it's like when you look up in the sky and it's not gray for some reason.
Exactly.
You figure something's wrong.
So, I mean, there's your advice with Posey. Get the man that's on vacation, that's in a good spot. Justin Morneau's another name that we like from this game. Again, don't necessarily need to stack Rockies batters, but they are lefties against a right-handed pitching Hudson. We know what Dickerson does at home against righties. We know what Blackman does at home against righties. Keep an eye on what this lineup card looks like, because they have shuffled Carlos Gonzalez around a little bit. They dropped him in the order, but he did have a couple hits last night. Maybe Walt Weiss sees that as a beacon of hope and shoots him back up the lineup again. Who knows? It's Walt Weiss. Nobody knows what Walt Weiss is thinking. Walt Weiss probably doesn't know what Walt Weiss is thinking.
I'm not convinced he knows how to think.
So, I mean, there's definitely some stack potential. I don't think it's necessarily must stack, as Justin pointed out. Hudson does keep the ball on the ground, so maybe that limits some home run upside there, but definitely some good bats there and some decent price points, honestly. They're not out of control. Unfortunately, Panic, bad play tonight because he is getting a lefty. Normally, we love our Joe Panic hitting in the two-hole for super cheap at Coors Field, but do remember, much better against righties than lefties as a minor leaguer, so you definitely don't want him tonight, but yeah, you're not using pitchers here. That's word to the wise, in case you didn't know that. But that's pretty much going to do it for your bats there, and I think for the analysis of this game.
Yeah, the only thing about that you just mentioned about Joe Panic is we've seen a lot of times recently that Matt Duffy gets to start and bat second against lefties.
Yes.
So
good call.
If you want a cheap source of exposure to Coors Field, you could certainly do much worse than Matt Duffy. So I think he's got a nice price tag as well. $3,600,
Yep.
Second base and shortstop on DraftKings. FanDuel absolute minimum salary at $22 at shortstop. So I still prefer Johnny Peralta a lot with that only $300 more on FanDuel. But if you just don't have that extra 300 because you loaded up your bats elsewhere, I mean, he's not a bad way to go there.
No, not at all.
All right, next game we have Pittsburgh at Arizona here, and this one's going to be A.J. Burnett versus Ruby De La Rosa. I'm not even sure how to say it, but I like to think of him as the guy to target. 9-run total, second highest on the night. Minus 130 favorite for A.J. Burnett, who he's been good so far this season. Kind of burned me last time in cash games with 1 strikeout against the Cubs, which is absolutely baffling that the Cubs only struck out once in 6 innings. But I mean, he's got a good price tag. If you want to target him in some tournaments tonight, $6,900 on FanDuel is a tremendous price for him tonight, and he doesn't have a terribly bad price tag on DraftKings either, where he's sitting at 76. So a guy who I don't think he's particularly risky. It is a hitter's park, but I mean, he keeps the ball on the ground, over 50% ground ball rate, and that's really what you want in the hitter's park. So with that being said, I'm not going out of my way to target a lot of Arizona bats, but I think you and I are both of the same thinking that we're going to be stacking some Pirates tonight against De La Rosa.
Yeah, without a doubt. And something else to remember with Burnett is I honestly think his price tag is a reflection of his struggles last year with Philadelphia still. Remember how good he was with Pittsburgh and pitching coach Ray Siraj before he ended up in Philadelphia for a season, pitching with a sports hernia, which just makes me cringe to think about. But Burnett, price points are really good on FanDuel and DK. Should get the run support. Should get the W. We love another pitcher that we're going to touch on a little bit later in the podcast, but Burnett's a decent alternative to him. Love me some Pirates. You mentioned Josh Harrison on the FanDuel Punch-Out earlier. I'll reiterate, good play, good lineup spot. Third base and outfield eligible on DK. 4,500 is not a bad price point. I love me some Pedro Alvarez from this contest. Big left-handed power, escaping PNC Park. Again, he's another one of those hitters that's on vacation, that gets to leave the dreary gray skies for the sunlight and mojitos maybe. And so you got Pedro Alvarez. Neil Walker's going to be hitting left-handed against the right-handed De La Rosa. So more exposure to De La Rosa's platoon issues, and there's just a lot to like here. I like some Pirates, and I mean, you can never go wrong with Andrew McCutchen. Obviously, it's a righty-righty matchup, but De La Rosa struggled with righties as well last year. $5,300 on DraftKings is a bit expensive, but I mean, if you're going to get these guys, you got to pay for the superstars on occasion, and only $4,100 though on FanDuel. So I really like the price point there. Considerably cheaper than your top outfield option on FanDuel, which is Mike Trout at $51. So pocketing $1,000 and using Andrew McCutchen against Ruby De La Rosa, yes, thank you. So definitely get your Pirates in there tonight. Very stackable option.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And just to reiterate about Josh Harrison, $2,800 on FanDuel. So yes, DK a lot more expensive today, but as we'll continue to mention, pitching not particularly expensive today at all. We still haven't even got to our favorite pitcher, who is very fairly priced on both sites. So, Pirates, one of, along with the Cardinals and a team we're going to mention here in a couple minutes, my favorite stacks today. I think you're on board there as well, along with Boston.
100%, yep.
All right, and here comes our favorite pitcher of the day, Los Angeles Dodgers at the San Diego Padres. And it is not Ian Kennedy, if you were wondering. It is Brandon McCarthy, who is a small favorite, minus 112, just a 7-run total, as we usually see at Petco. And McCarthy's off to a hell of a start so far this season. He's been pitching very well. You look at his game logs, 9, 10, and 6 strikeouts. The 9 coming against the Padres in just 5 innings in his first start. Gave up a couple runs there, but did get the win. He's been in double digits on FanDuel, 12 or more fantasy points in each game, despite not even getting the win in one of those games. So tremendous price tag, great spot for him against a lineup that, yes, is a good lineup, hasn't really got it going. Pitcher's Park, $7,800 on FanDuel. I mean, I'm not going to say that he's a no-brainer play, but, I mean, he's just a tremendous price point play, especially on FanDuel tonight.
Yeah, and I love him on DraftKings as well because that strikeout upside is just through the roof. He's retained his velocity gains from last year, posted career highs in velocity, and you kind of have to wonder, like, is he going to carry it over? Well, yeah, he did. I mean, he was a guy that came in the best shape of his life last year. Hardy har har. Everybody likes the laugh of every player coming in the best shape of their career. But McCarthy put on the weight. It showed up in the pitch FX data, and throwing hard again this year, throwing his four-seamer more than his sinker. And that's a good thing because that four-seamer It is missing bats at a high rate, big swinging strike rate. Fangraphs has him with the largest swinging strike rate among qualified starters this year. So,
Wow.
guy that's really missing bats. And biggest knock on him is his home run rate so far. It's not sustainable. And where's a great ballpark to pitch to kind of get that normalized? Petco Park.
Yeah.
So expect him to pitch well tonight. Expect him to mow down some Padres hitters, and I'm definitely a big fan here. So definitely get yourself some Brandon McCarthy. He's my top pitcher. He's your top pitcher. He's everybody's top pitcher tonight. Everybody in the know, that is. I'm thinking you're going to see Waino owned more, and but that's not going to be us. We're not going to be driving that ownership wagon. We're driving the Brandon McCarthy wagon. Love us some McCarthy tonight. I don't know what else to gush about with him. I mean, he's so good. And Ian Kennedy coming off the disabled list, making his first start of the season. So I would expect maybe he's a little bit rusty. He did pitch earlier this season. First start since coming off the disabled list, I should say.
I think he pitched 2 innings and got pulled.
2 against the Giants. Yep. So not the first start of the year, but first start since coming off the disabled list. Maybe they get to that bullpen a little bit early. I love the low betting total. Vegas knows what they're doing, so get on your McCarthy horse and ride him tonight.
Yeah, I mean, the only place where you could maybe justify Wainwright would be on DraftKings, where there's only a $600 difference. But for me, it would just be go ahead and play both in your cash games. Because,
Sure.
I mean, 8,800, 9,400, you can easily still fit some bats there. But, I mean, especially on FanDuel, I mean, you got a $1,600 difference. That's a no-brainer for me. I'm taking McCarthy.
Agreed.
All right, moving on to the next game. There's only 2 left. This one, Texas at the Los Angeles Angels. And here's another spot where you're going to get some exposure. But I'd like to think these guys are probably going to be more heavily owned. C.J. Wilson, a -160 favorite, a huge favorite tonight. Tied with another guy we're going to mention here in a minute as the biggest favorite. 8-run total here. Colby Lewis on the other side. Vegas is telling you one thing, and that is get some Angels bats in your lineup. Colby Lewis, awful against lefties, 373 woba allowed, awful against righties, 355 last year. In case you didn't know, he's pretty bad. I think Colby may be the wrong type of name for him. Maybe Swiss would be more appropriate for him because he's just every team poking holes in Colby Lewis. So I love Mike Trout tonight. He's easy to fit with these cheap pitchers. So Mike Trout will be in most of my lineups where I can afford it. Maybe outside of some stacks he might not. But he and Cole Calhoun, who I know Josh is a huge fan of today, that's going to probably be a duo that I slot into my cash games, especially on FanDuel, where Cole Calhoun's only $3,400 tonight.
Yeah, I mean, you pair Calhoun with Trout, and suddenly the most expensive outfielder becomes a lot more affordable. I mean, the average salary for the two drops to a very affordable price. You're looking at $8,500 for both players, so $4,250. That's not crazy. You can still build around that. And as we've talked about throughout the podcast, pitching's cheap tonight. You're going to get to spend on hitters. Go out and get yourself treat yourself to a nice luxury Mike Trout this evening, and enjoy the perks of owning a Mike Trout, which include stolen bases, home runs, runs batted in, runs. I mean, not that I need to sell you on the best player in baseball, but he is a very good option. You pair him with Calhoun, and I think you're off to a really good start. You get that left-handed bat in Calhoun, who gets to exploit that awful Lewis woba. And as you noted, not much better against righties, and Mike Trout good against everyone. So get those guys. Maybe even get some of the guys behind them. Albert Pujols, better against lefties and righties, but we know that Colby Lewis isn't good against anyone. So grabbing some Pujols looks pretty good. Maybe a mini stack of 1 through 3. I still like Eric Ibar. Curious to see where he hits tonight, but Ibar going to get the platoon advantage against Colby Lewis. So, I mean, these are some names that you have to have. And as you pointed out, Vegas says get your Angels, and we listen to Vegas when Vegas talks.
Yeah, I mean, and if you're a math fan, then Mike Trout, best hitter on the day, plus Colby Lewis, worst pitcher on the day, equals play some damn Mike Trout in your lineups. It's pretty simple.
Much. That's a pretty simple formula, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, that's about as hard as it gets.
It's not E = MC squared. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I have no idea what that means. It's not WOBA, so I've never heard of that. But either way, moving on here to the last game of the night, where we like to turn a tournament pitcher in this one, and they're both similarly priced, but It's obviously going to be one way. Vegas tends to agree. James Paxton, huge favorite despite getting crushed in his last start. Minus 160 favorite against the, I guess the offense formerly known as the Major League Offense in Minnesota. They've just been horrible this season. Got absolutely mowed down last night by Felix Hernandez. Obviously, Paxton nowhere near that level of pitcher, but, this team is swinging and missing at everything. They're not getting on base. They're not hitting for power. It's embarrassing. Paxton might want to do them some favors and just throw them a couple underhand pitches just to get some confidence going with these guys.
I love Paxton tonight. The price point's right on DK and FanDuel for some GPP ownership. Keeps the ball on the ground. Biggest knock on him as a prospect was his control. Some thought that he may end up in the bullpen because he walked some batters, but hasn't been walking batters so far this year. Didn't really walk many last year in the bigs either. So I like Paxton. I like the ground ball rate. I like some strikeout upside against the Twins lineup that just isn't very good. And lefty, so he's going to get the better of Joe Mauer in terms of that platoon advantage. And I hate to do this, but I'm going to say some April showers from the Seattle Mariners may bring some May flowers for you owners. So not for Trevor May, unfortunately. But
he may not get out of the third inning.
Yeah, we're going to bring the pun game back. And, maybe Mayday for Trevor May. Get down. Like it's not going to be pretty. It's going to be ugly. I definitely want to get some Mariners in there against him. You're looking at left-handed batters in Robinson Cano and our boy Kyle Seager. Obviously, splitting those two up is a guy named Nelly Cruz. You might have heard of him. He's pretty good at baseball. He kind of hits the ball a long way when he gets a hold of one. Not going to say you have to stack Mariners. Not going to say that you'd be crazy to stack some Mariners either. So you can infer what you'd like to from all the sarcasm and ridiculousness in this section of the pod. But I like me some Cruz. I definitely like Cano. Big fan of Seager. And a couple guys that we also talked about that are bargains. You highlighted Logan Morrison on the FanDuel Punch-Out. Good price on DK2 at $3,400. I'll mention Seth Smith, $3,500 on DraftKings. Min salary on FanDuel. Not that you need salary savings tonight, but those guys award you that if you are grabbing some Mike Trout and some big bats elsewhere around the league. So definitely some options on that Mariners offense that I like, and we obviously like Paxton a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Paxton with some great upside. He did struggle in his last game. I just think that's going to keep his ownership down. He got crushed in that game, and this guy struggles with walks at times, but this Minnesota team is not a very patient team. They don't walk a lot. They don't hit the ball a lot. So really everything going in his favor today. So really like him. Especially when you see a pitcher coming off such a bad start like he had last time. He scored negative 12 points on DraftKings. To see him a minus 160 favorite not only tells you that Vegas has confidence in him, but they have confidence in the lineup. So, that just furthers the point where this Seattle stack at home against a righty, once again, for about the 3,000th time already in April. You play him against a righty, especially a bad righty, where Trevor May allowed almost a 400 WOBA to both lefties and righties last year. It was absolutely abysmal.
And May's a young pitcher that is struggling and is arguably the worst pitcher on the slate. He and Colby Lewis can have a slap fight to determine who is the worst starter going tonight. But you want to pick on these guys. That is DFS gold for those of you out there that are dabbling and really just getting into it. You pick on bad pitchers. It seems simple. It sounds simple. It is simple. But you know what? It works. These guys are bad pitchers for a reason, and you get your good hitters against them, and you get your mediocre hitters that go from mediocre to good when they face these guys. So definitely want to get yourself some exposure to Trevor May with some of the mediocre hitters in the Logan Morrison range and some of the really good hitters in the Robinson Cano, Kyle Seager, and Nelly Cruz range.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of bad pitchers, as we were talking, the Tigers are already putting a hurting on new starter TJ House. So just to further that point, if there's a bad pitcher on the mound, especially against a team that can hit, just don't overthink it. You play good hitters against bad pitchers. So
are you saying that it's a bad housing market right now? Like it's
this is like a housing crisis right now in Detroit. It is bad. But JD Martinez helped him out with a double play ball. So no thanks to you, JD Martinez. We'll see you in probably the third inning for your next at bat. But with that, that's going to wrap things up for us. Hopefully you enjoyed our pun game and all of our information, helping you out with some stacks, some avoids, and some top plays for tonight's slate. And good luck in your contest. Follow us on Twitter at DF Cafe. And also check out all of our great content for tonight's slate at dailyfantasycafe.com. We will see you next time.